I don't like Mondays. This livens up the day.
The "this" that the murderer referred to was a horrific attack using a .22 caliber semi-automatic rifle on school children. Brenda Ann Spencer was born on April 3, 1962 in San Diego, California. Brenda's childhood was far from normal and pleasant because she lived in poverty with her father, Wallace Spencer, and it seems that Brenda had a strained relationship with him.
I keep trying to better myself and deal with problems from the past and everything. So,
in what ways better yourself?
well, like through, I've gotten off the drugs and just trying to deal with the problems, family problems and things that I had, and basically just trying to grow up, actually.
Wallace Spencer was a gun collector, and unfortunately, his daughter developed an interest in guns. People who knew Brenda say that during her teenage years, she started using drugs, stealing, and often skipping school. But when she did attend school, she drew significant attention. Brenda had told her classmates that she planned to do something big to get on TV. Tragically, she followed through with this plan, committing an act that media outlets continue to discuss to this day.
Looking at those pictures years ago, you did look like a zombie. And that was because of
The drugs, the street drugs that I used, and
On January 29, 1979, children were lined up outside Grover Cleveland Elementary School, waiting for the gates to open. At the same time, and across the street, Brenda was watching them from her window. She aimed a .22 caliber semi-automatic rifle, which she received as a Christmas gift from her father, at the children and began shooting.
Are there any kids hurt?
The shooting began around 8:30 a.m. A sniper was firing random shots at school children on their way to class at Cleveland Elementary.
Brenda later said about the gun,
I asked for a radio, and he bought me a gun. I felt like he wanted me to kill myself.
Do you remember the gun?
I remember the rifle because I had gotten that a month previous.
As a Christmas present?
Yeah, it was for Christmas.
From your father? Do you remember loading the gun? Do you remember pointing the gun?
I remember looking out and seeing like commando types sneaking up on the house and stuff, and I don't remember actually going in and getting the rifle and loading it up, but I remember seeing them and being real scared and terrified. You know, they're coming to get me, and I have to protect myself and stuff. And I know somewhere in there I did go and get the rifle.
In listening to you, I don't understand something. You were suicidal, you were on drugs, yet your father gave you a .22 for Christmas. Why did he do that?
To this day, I don't understand that, because the counselors had all told him that I was suicidal. If I had a child and the counselors had told me that, there's no way that I would have given them a rifle or a gun or anything.
Tragically, 2 people were killed in this active shooting. The school principal, Burton Ragg, and a custodian named Michael Suker, who was trying to protect a child.
Principal Burton Ragg was gunned down by Brenda Spencer, his widow, Kathy.
And as far as I'm concerned, she should never be let out.
None of the children were killed, but 8 of them, along with a police officer, were injured.
8 children and 2 adults, the school principal and a custodian, were felled quickly. The principal and custodian would die.
The most seriously injured were taken out as soon as the gunfire let up. Surgical teams at Alvarado Hospital went to work on the first 6 victims and quickly requested that no more of the injured be sent to the already overtaxed hospital. The school's principal and custodian were among the victims brought here. Principal Burton Ragg died in surgery. Custodian Mike Sukar was dead on arrival. At Grossmont Hospital, another 4 children were brought in by police ambulance. Each had suffered gunshot wounds in the sniper attack, but hospital officials quickly pronounced their conditions as good. Concerned parents began to arrive. Not knowing yet whether their children were among the injured, they chose to wait here together rather than at home alone. And surprisingly, little more than an hour after she was brought in, 10-year-old Crystal Hardy went home with her parents. She had escaped with a minor injury and a bad fright.
I got shot, and then Mr. Barnes said, Crystal, he said, Duck, you guys run. Then I got shot, and then I went in the nurse's office, and I was bleeding a lot. I just was laying there. And then the policeman came and brought me here.
You must have been really scared.
I was. It hurt.
The bullet that went through her wrist didn't harm anything. It went through, didn't hit the bone, or we're just praising the Lord. You're lucky.
Take care of yourself.
Brenda's attack lasted 20 minutes, and during that terrifying time, she fired about 30 rounds at the crowd. When the police arrived at the scene, they surrounded Brenda's house for over 6 hours. During this standoff, Brenda refused to cooperate and even threatened to come out shooting if they forced her to leave the house.
Minutes after 16-year-old Brenda Spencer started shooting, police officers arrived at the scene ready to take any necessary action in order to avoid any further bloodshed. After neighbors, nearby residents, and all the school children were safely evacuated, police mapped out their strategy. Prepared for either lengthy negotiations or for an assault, police took every precaution to keep onlookers away from the line of fire. Because the house on Lake Atlin is on a winding residential street, crowd and traffic control was not a major problem. After the first SWAT team moved into position, the long waiting game started.
For a while, the sniper, 16-year-old Brenda Spencer, kept police at bay, firing from her house across the street from the school at anything that moved. A police trainee was shot while trying to assist a wounded child. Inside the school, 320 students huddled in the auditorium, and just before noon they were evacuated in buses. Anxious parents were reunited with their children.
Over this 6-hour standoff, Brenda gave a phone interview to the San Diego Union Tribune, but unfortunately, there is no recording of that interview available. According to quotes from the interview, Brenda said her reason for the attack was her hatred of Mondays.
I don't like Mondays. This livens up the day.
Eventually, after 6 hours, Brenda surrendered. One of the negotiators mentioned that they promised her a Burger King Whopper to coax her out of the house. Brenda later claimed that she had consumed a large amount of PCP before the shooting.
Where'd you get the PCP?
You can buy it at school and on the streets. It was really, really common then on the streets.
Okay, you're on whiskey, PCP, then what happened? It's Monday morning.
You know, I have a very fragmented memory of the whole day. Mostly what I remember is what I've read in the police reports. And I couldn't take you step by step through the whole day, but I basically know what happened.
Through reading the police
Through reading
reports.
the reports and things. But it's still because I was so many drugs and stuff, and it's just really fragmented on what I remember. I take responsibility for doing, you know, the crime itself. I remember up to a certain point clearly, and that was, I guess, when the drugs started to kick in, because all that morning I had been drinking and taking the pills with the whiskey and stuff. Past a certain point, it just all kind of phases out.
It was later revealed that a year before the January 1979 incident, Brenda had shot at the school with a BB gun, though no one was injured. She was arrested for this, but was placed on probation. After this incident, it was recommended that Wallace Spencer send his daughter to a psychiatric hospital, but he chose to manage her mental health issues himself. Brenda's lawyers tried to use an insanity defense, but were unsuccessful. They also attempted to argue that Brenda's violence was a result of abuse from her father, including sexual abuse. But this defense did not help her case. Notably, Wallace Spencer later married one of Brenda's 17-year-old cellmates, who was very similar to Brenda. Despite being only 16 at the time of the shooting, Brenda was charged as an adult due to the severity of her crime. She was ultimately sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Brenda later complained that for her sentence, the judge did not take into account her drug use before the shooting.
During my court appearances, they left a lot of paperwork out that would have had a lot of bearing on my trial if they had brought it up. It would have changed a lot of things.
Such as?
Well, there's 2 sets of toxicology reports The ones that went to court with me stated that I was on no drugs or alcohol. And then there's an independent lab test from the same blood samples that show I had blood alcohol levels and a lethal amount of drugs in my system, and that was never raised in court.
Including PCP?
There's no test right now for PCP, but the other drugs and the alcohol together on their own were a fatal dosage. If I had no drugs or alcohol in my system, then I'm just a cold-blooded killer, and that's not how I am. If I have drugs and alcohol in my system at the time, it's like it changes it from premeditated to manslaughter.
Some believe that Brenda's actions influenced later incidents, such as the Columbine High School massacre. She herself has said, "With every school shooting, I feel I'm partially responsible. What if they got the idea from what I did?" Brenda also claimed that she doesn't remember saying, "I don't like Mondays."
Brenda, what you're really remembered for is you saying, "I hate Mondays." Did you say, "I hate Mondays"?
I don't remember saying that. Right now we're trying to get some evidence that I did say that. I'd like to hear the tape, and it really influenced how people saw me and thought about, the whole case. It's just, I'd like to know that I actually did say that if I did.
If you said that, it makes you sound cold-blooded.
Yeah, and on PCP, you're liable to say anything.
Why should Brenda Spencer be let out of prison?
Basically, for a second chance. Everyone changes. Everyone changes, and I feel that everyone deserves a second chance. I blew it the first time, I wasn't going where I needed to go and getting the help I needed to get. And I would like a chance out there to lead a normal life.